We've seen photographs of hurricane in one ICF house just standing strong right there.
Imagine if people did not have to evacuate every hurricane.
What are 3 reasons this is the way it's got to be built compared to traditional framing?
They are better air quality for the family. They are safer. They are lower energy bills.
It pays off in so many different ways. Your mechanical system's going to be half, right?
And you can withstand an F5 tornado.
What are the next new cool applications that you're seeing this being used in the future?
A recent one is a product called Gigacrete.
The nice thing about it is an ICF product, you can sell it to so many individuals.
And so that's where I truly am biased to ICF.
Welcome to Beers with Contractors.
All right, tradies, it's another week. Welcome to Beers with Contractors. Terry, cheers to you, sir.
Will.
And hey, before we get to bitching at one another, let me go ahead and thank our subscribers. Let's go ahead and down our subscriber list. Got some funny names this week. Ben Your Age, Leahy 413, Fernando Vanderjack, Fisherman 19, J-Ball 61 to Flash. Also want to give a shout out to a long-term listener, Brad Webb, that owns Sinorama. Always commenting on stuff, shooting me text messages. Brad, appreciate your long-term listening-ship. Listening-ship or listenership? What is it, Terry? You're not a grammar teacher.
No, they keep me away from the words.
Yeah. Well, hey, I know this episode is going to come out middle of November, but I got to tell you this funny story about Halloween. Did I tell you what we decided to do for Halloween?
No, what happened?
No, it was all good. don't load it up with negativity right off the bat, bro. Hey, so no, like we set up this backdrop and lights, and then it's funny, we acted like sportscasters. So as the kids came up, it'd be like, all right, now we've got Elsa coming up. She's on the 30. She's in the red zone. Here she goes. There's a call to play, and she scores. And during the whole time, we were playing like the and the parents loved it. Some of the kids were confused, but this is what caught me off guard. All the teenagers thought we were literally live streaming.
Oh, no.
And they were like, are you live streaming right now? And they were looking around for the cameras. And I'm like, no, it's just me, just with my microphone cheering you guys on to come get candy. And we didn't get any pictures, but, man, somehow I'm going to surface on social media. It was a blast. Next year we're going to do it where we have the kids in one lane and dads coming up to get beer. And we're going to call it the Halloween Neighborhood Combine. And we are going to have so much fun with it. So, anyway, how was your Halloween? I know you've got 2 little ones.
No, it was great. We walked around, friend of the family's neighborhood, had all the little cousins out. My kids were out. Me and my brother-in-law walking down the street, carrying beers, supervising the children, making sure no one got hit. But no, great time. Things have changed. Like, everyone's sitting towards the street now, so the kids aren't actually walking up to the houses, ringing the doorbell, stuff like that.
Huh.
I was not prepared for that. It's been a minute since I've been out there, I guess.
Interesting. Well,
Yeah.
I mean, did you at least take a few moments to explain to your kids about taxes after? You know, you got to take the dad tax, right? You gotta take the dad tax and the candy.
No, that is going to be a learning opportunity for my children.
Yep.
And I am even trying to figure out ways that they can, invest some of their candy in future returns and avoid those tax problems.
Yeah. They need to find tax shelters, which is keeping the candy away from dad.
Exactly.
That's funny. Well, cool. Well, hey, listen, I'm proud of you. And by the way, listeners, all 5 of you, Terry and I were in here like an old married couple just complaining at one another before you started. So now we're shaking it off. We got our beers cracked, released up. Terry, I'm proud of you. I mean, you invited our guest today, and I was questioning, all right, do I want to know how this is going to go? But then I read more about this guy online, and this is actually going to be pretty cool. So I'm excited to introduce our guest today. Owner Wade Design Group, full-service design group. They started in Edmond, specializing in ICF. But now, since changing their business model after COVID, they're nationwide. They only work on ICF projects, really focusing down on green projects, 99% residential. And now they're a team of 4 doing upwards of 150, sometimes 200 home design projects a year for folks all over the country. And it's kind of neat because after COVID has shut everything down, they just went to 100% virtual, and they've been growing by leaps and bounds. It's been pretty wild. So here to teach us two Neanderthals about design and construction in ICF, we have Jerad Stout. Welcome to the show, buddy.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, and we see you already chipped one off, twisted the cap with us. So, well, Jerad, obviously coming from a design background, and also, you didn't come out of the womb saying, hey, you know what, I think I'm just going to get into design, right? So tell us a little bit about how you got in this industry. And then we're going to find out how you met Terry, which is even worse, I know. What prison cell did you meet Terry?
Yeah. So, actually, like in high school, I kind of discovered I was very creative. And I love the creation part of everything, but my dad was always real handy. We grew up pretty poor. And so you did everything. You didn't hire people out, stuff like that. So being in construction, my dad building a house, I knew I wanted something to do with construction. And as creative as I started getting into, I thought architecture was the way to go. So in high school, kind of realized that might be the route I want to go. Ended up going to OCC and get a degree in engineering services with a CAD emphasis. And so pretty much getting really well at designing inside those software. AutoCAD, Revit, SketchUp, several different programs within that architecture. And from there, I loved drafting. And so I kind of wanted to go into that industry based off of that. Right out of it, kind of towards the end is where I met Terry. And that's when, life started going down a bit.
Hey, we share the same story, Jerad. Hey,
Terry, he's been phenomenal. I met him. He was a professor at the time. He was his very first semester, and it was my last semester. So I'm like, hey, I want to draw. I feel like I have a passion for this. And do you know of any internships where I could at least get in the door somewhere? And you got to think, this is right after 2008. Architecture firms are not hiring. And Terry came back to me and he said, this ICF industry, I'm a main company, I don't know if I can, but they were looking for an intern to kind of help do takeoffs and stuff like that. And immediately I was interested. And so it was actually close to the college. It wasn't too far away. And I went in there and next thing you know, I have an internship. And that was really the start of my career because my understanding of ICF was very limited. What I did know actually came from Terry's class, which wasn't much. It kind of touched base on it, but we kept moving because there's a lot to go over. After diving in, I love the industry. I love the greener aspect of it. I love that it's unique. It is a strong niche. And at that time, there wasn't a lot of people designing for it. So I saw the niche for myself. And after a long path, and I don't know if we want to get into that, I created a Wade Design Group. Wade is my middle name. A lot of people ask. And we started designing for the ICF industry, and it's just grown from there. It's a niche that continues to grow. And so it's a great way to build. I truly believe in it. It's not the fact that, I have business based in that industry. I truly believe that it is the way to build. That's what got me into this whole.
Yeah.
So, Jerad, you've been successful in design, obviously, here in the state of Oklahoma. And then when you took your firm nationally, right? I know you've done projects in Florida and all across the country. Doing that many projects and doing that many projects in that many municipalities, what's some of the challenges you run into dealing with different states, codes, requirements, stuff like that?
This episode is sponsored by Performance, the bonus system designed to increase profits for your construction company. Performance incentivizes your production team for more efficient installs and rewards them when they beat your preset labor goals. So no more milking the clock and no more unnecessary gas station trips. Performance drives your team to work harder and smarter. Every construction company on Performance has seen a 7% decrease in direct labor costs or more. Click the link in the description or visit performance.co to schedule your demo today. That's PER4MANCE.co. Reward your team, retain your team, grow your profits. Performance.
It's a very good question. A lot of it, and when you look at the IRC and the IBC and looking into national codes, is kind of where you start. What's nice about the ICF industry is we're already surpassing a lot of their basic codes. And so when we get into these smaller municipalities, they do the absolute minimum for concrete wall construction, which ICF is above. So when we get into places like Florida, Florida's our biggest market. South Florida has 185-mile-an-hour wind loads. We have to meet those requirements at ICF, but we're already meeting it above and beyond. So anytime that we design outside of like Oklahoma or any municipality that's more strict, we have to download the architecture requirements and stuff like that. In a lot of cases, especially in Florida, once we're done with our side, we have connected with engineers, structural engineers and stuff like that. And we kind of refer them into it. They design the footer, the rebar schedule, connection to the roof, lintels over openings, and they are able to kind of take it from there, and we can move on to it.
Yeah. Well, before we keep diving into this topic, Jerad, I feel terrible for not doing this because we may have somebody out there that doesn't understand what ICF is. So let's just break down, get the crayons out. What is ICF real quick?
So ICF stands for Insulated Concrete Forms. There's a ton of information online for it, but it's essentially 2 EPS blocks. I would say the average is about 2.5 inches. There's blocks that range beyond that, and there's some that's even thicker. 2.5 inches of EPS on each side, and then we have a plastic webbing in between to set rebar. And so as we stack these blocks up, Legos, we can go to the top and use pump truck and pump concrete into these walls. And so essentially we're not buying forms and stuff like that, like wood forms, framing up a wall, pouring, and then throwing the forms over. We actually get to keep the forms as our insulation.
Yeah. And obviously, because you've been in the industry so long, and we see this in every industry where somebody just picks up on the next new technology and all of a sudden they're the specialists in it. I mean, honestly, I think I've been working with ICF for years through my family's construction company, but I've never met somebody that's been in it as long as you. You know, so obviously there's a lot of strengths there that kept you in that specialized space. You know, what are some of the top 2 or 3 reasons, like you said, no, this is the way it's got to be built compared to traditional framing?
So I would say what's kind of kept me in it, because it is a true niche. It's a small industry compared to the construction industry in a whole. What's kept me in it is they are better air quality for the family. They are safer. They are lower energy bills. There's a lot about it that you don't have to be a true tree hugger, for instance, to want a home like this, because there's so much value in it. You don't have mold issues like you do in normal frame. You don't have termites. I mean, there's just so much, and I am biased to you, obviously, I'm biased for good reason.
Yeah.
The nice thing about it is an ICF home and that product, you know, you can sell it to so many individuals. Like that person driving a Prius, wanting energy efficiency, you know, they want to reduce their impact in the environment. Or you sell it to that person that wants a concrete bunker, you know, for themselves. You know, you can hit both ends of that market pretty easily with an ICF product.
Terry speaking for the tinfoil hat wearing individuals out of Guthrie, Oklahoma today.
Just wait.
Teasing you, buddy. Well, and you know, I've been a big fan of this product for years. I think it's great in energy, and we're gonna start dissecting energy here in a little bit. But you know, I've heard some common misconceptions about ICF that it's boxy, it's blocky, and it doesn't give you a lot of design freedom. So, you know, what have you found in the evolution over the few years when it comes to using ICF and design in a natural or unique way?
You would be surprised what you can do with it. Now, obviously, you want to try to land wall on wall. That's not just a concrete metaphor. That's period. When you start cantilevering and stuff like that, we have to prepare for that. But in most cases, most styles, I mean, there's well over 200 different architectural styles. When you dive into that, a lot of them are boxier than you would realize. There's a lot of details that spreads them apart. If you're looking at a modern design or a Victorian design, it's still stacked. It's just the way that it flows across the house as your eyes flow. You'll find that with ICF, we can do any style you're looking for, but we are more conscious of how we design. We don't want to stick a window in a corner when we don't have to. We want to try to set a window at the top of the block if we can. They're 16-inch tall. Those are things that just help the construction of it. Now, there's times when architecture oversees what we know about ICF, and therefore we have to put openings and stuff in certain places to make it work and fit that style, versus if I was in the field installing it, I would do it. And so we do run into that from time to time. That is part of it. But what's nice about concrete is it can get in the tightest places, and when it hardens, you have a structure.
Jerad, I mean, you've been in this space for 14 years now, and this product was out and in industry before you. But we're looking at 20 plus years of it being out, and it's still not mainstream. What do you think it's going to take? And it's a better product. It's a better system by far. What is it going to take design and construction industries to see or do to move forward and just start adopting this a lot more?
That's actually a really excellent question, Terry. It has been a struggling industry since the 70s. It came out in Canada for basement, but we got a taste.
There's the problem. Canada. We knew it. We knew it.
Too nice. They're not good at
Sure, we
selling
might
and
have
pushing
some
the
native
product. They're
listeners.
too nice. Too nice. Yeah.
No, but what was really surprising to me, and I think the entire industry, is in 2020 when COVID happened and lumber prices skyrocketed. All of a sudden, people started researching alternatives, and they're like, I can build an ICF home cheaper than I can a wood frame home. And they got a little taste of what it looks like to tap into alternatives. A true issue against the ICF industry is the actual construction industry. Builders want to build like they did in the 80s, like their dads did, and if the asbestos wasn't illegal, they'd still use it. And that's what's amazing about the construction industry is they don't want to move forward. This is how my granddad did it, so I'm going to do it too. Well, that went out of style in the 80s. And so now that we are diving into better ways of construction, even though ICF precedes the 80s, even though we're diving into that difference of a construction that people can use for their homes, this is not a commercial type product. It's amazing what people can value. And so I've been a believer, as Terry said, it has been 14 years. I seriously started drawing a little over 10 years. I've done a few homes before then, but we actually started the firm and we just got serious about it. And when I started my firm, I got, I think, 4 projects and I was just overwhelmed. Like, this is amazing. This is going to be a career with 4 houses. Oh my God. And then it ended up
like, how can we ever get bigger?
A year. Yeah, I couldn't think beyond 4. Incredible. But, with people having so much information at their fingertips, they're okay looking into alternatives for everything. Why not do that construction? Why not live in a healthier environment every day, sleeping healthy? And so that's where I truly am biased to ICF.
Well, you brought up the cost difference reduction when going through COVID. We've all seen the photographs of like hurricane disasters coming out of Florida and that one ICF house just standing strong right there on the beach. I mean, that's got to influence some of your customers.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, every builder says it, and it's horrible to say, but natural disasters are wonderful for construction because everything gets wiped off. It's a clean slate. And what's sad is builders will go in, build the same exact thing, and they expect to buy that land for cheap. Now it's been wiped clean. Years later when another one comes through. Now, one specifically, and it might be the one you're talking about, they were actually on national news. He did the walls in ICF, the roof in ICF, the floors in between were also in the ICF decking, which is a phenomenal product. So this entire thing was a fortress sitting on the beach, and it had no damage. Absolutely no damage. Imagine if people did not have to evacuate every hurricane, and they actually stay where they are, wait it out, and be able to come out. It would be a different world. It would be a different world for us. And you go to other countries, third world countries, and they're still building with concrete. They've had several natural disasters come through, and they are still standing. But here in the U.S., our quality it's lacked over the years. And it's okay to build a 2x4 home in Tornado Alley and have no wind restrictions whatsoever. And you're in code restricted areas. No. It's amazing. And builders stand for that. They say it's perfectly fine.
Yeah.
So I have a lot of frustration in that. I mean, because I want people to be protected. I want families to be protected. And so when I design into ICF and we're meeting 200 plus mile an hour wind loads, it's simple enough. You're 5 to 7% more to build an ICF than you are a traditional stick frame home. And you got to think, you might spend 15, 20 extra bucks on your mortgage per month, but you're saving 150 to 200 bucks a month in energy. So yeah, per month, you are positive building with an ICF home. It makes complete sense.
But yeah, it's interesting you talk about this when you're talking about this concept of natural disasters, energy, health, and home. And I have to deal with this, and also spray foam companies have to deal with this all the time, where it's like, we've been in the industry, and it's like we're still having to convince people like this is a good idea. Are you still running into this after 14 years where it's like, yeah, I know you want to design it this way, but I just really want to build it with a few 2x4s?
All the time. We will actually go through the level. We design everything out in ICF, and we might be doing a project in Virginia, and they just can't find a contractor that will build with ICF. And so therefore they back out of it thinking they're going to have to hire somebody out of state to come in. And now it's really getting expensive, and they'll walk away and go back to 2x6 construction or something like that, just because contractors are the biggest thing that holds back that industry.
And what's really aggravating is even here in Oklahoma, right? There's ICF contractors. You can get a home built, but people would rather spend $20,000 or $30,000 more for upgraded kitchen and bathroom that has zero payback over the life of that building, and not put that money into better wall systems, better mechanical systems, things that will actually save them money over the life of that structure. It is just insane.
Yeah, and we had a guest on a while ago, and I don't know if you know him, Jerad. His name is Austin Tunnel of Building Culture. He talks about this. He says it's actually costing us more money to build cheap structures. So you may think you're getting the cheaper structure, but the cost of maintaining the structure over time erodes away all the savings you eventually had at the beginning. And that's where we see such an opportunity in ICF in this world. And it's like, it pains me to see that there's either contractors or even communities in the country that are not accepting it. But stick with it. Of course, hopefully we crest that early adopter stage that we see with all products. Yeah. But hell, you've been at it 14 years. I'd like to think, Jerad, are we past the early adopter stage for ICF?
No, absolutely not, unfortunately. I will say.
And why is that?
Well, it's a big industry. The wood industry owns this industry. And what I will say is it is growing in the fact that we do have so much information at our fingertips. People are following all these ICF guys and stuff like that, realizing, I know nothing about construction, but we can build a home at this quality in our area. And so there is a growth to it, but you got to realize 98% of builders, all they know is wood construction, and they're going to keep it that way. And it's hard to convince them otherwise. And that's what really holds this industry back. Now, I do have a strong belief that as these younger generations, mention Terry, give him a little bit of credit, that when you go through a program where you realize there's options out there, I'm going into this construction industry, that now we can start to see growth in the next decade, 2 decades, something like that in an industry like this. When back in the 80s and 90s, you got your news from a newspaper. You didn't know about this type of construction. So it's a different world now. It's the information's getting out. People are listening to podcasts, TikToks, everything. So I think that the industry has a chance to grow in the upcoming decades, but it's still a small industry at this point.
So actually, because I do a lot of business consulting and things like that, Jerad, and obviously there's always some gatekeepers along the way of evolution in a product line like this, right? Obviously, your end customer is the homeowner, but you've got all of these individuals, including local codes, in the way of trying to institute a certain product or something like that. So let's pivot a little bit. One of the major stakeholders here are obviously the builders. So what are the advantages for builders to get into this? Obviously the margins are there when compared to traditional construction. So what are maybe the top 3 things that builders should know about wanting to get into ICF when partnering with a designer like you?
It's quicker construction. They're going to see a lot of money savings on their end, especially if they're doing spec homes and stuff like that, because the savings are passed on to their homeowners. So if I was a builder building ICF homes, that would be my pitch to homeowners. I'd be building more extensive homes, not by much, not by marginal errors, But I would build to a point where I can tell a homeowner, hey, your energy bill is going to be like $30 a month living in this house, and you can withstand an F5 tornado. I was like, so do you want my house or do you want John's next door? And I think most of the time people are going to spend a little bit extra money knowing the quality of house, because that's another thing that is good to dive into. Every builder on the planet builds a quality home. So what is a quality home? Whenever advertised, we see that builder builds quality. So my question is, well, how is it quality? And that's where I really feel like when you're using alternative products that actually benefits you, that's quality. It's not what you can see. Items inside your wall, people don't want to pay for what's inside your wall. They want to see their countertops. They want to see their sink, their faucet. That's what really shows to a homeowner. And the longevity of that, it's just like a trend in construction. Like farmhouse, for instance, I beat up on farmhouse, but I have no issue. It is a trend. It's one that will come and go. And everybody's got one. You drive through Edmond, where we used to be, that is everybody's new home. When it used to be the, what was it, French cottage or something like that. That was the big deal in that town, but now it's all farmhouse. It's just a trend. So when you're building homes that you can consider an heirloom home, your children can move into this after major catastrophes, then that is a quality home to me.
And you bring up the idea that, hey, your utility bills are going to be significantly less with an ICF home. But, one thing that I think the industry has to take a hold of is not only are your utility bills going to be lower, but your mechanical system is going to be half, right? And the associated, say you want to go off grid, do net zero. If you have an energy efficient home, the size of that solar array on that home is going to be significantly lower. You reduce that cost, you increase that energy efficiency. It pays off in so many different ways. And we have a hard time communicating that out to the end user.
Right. Yeah, that's a very good point.
And it's funny, one of my favorite quotes, I can't remember who said it. I think it was Tommy Mello, said, hey, if you want to go apples to apples, just go sell oranges, right? It's the perfect opportunity, because it's not just all of the mutual benefits that we've been talking about, but it does lead me to the point, because obviously we live in Tornado Alley, so it only behooves us more to build our structures, more effective, safe, and efficient. But what has been the biggest difference between home design practices you see here locally versus the nation that we probably should adopt here locally?
So these are all good questions. Majority, and this isn't just for Oklahoma, majority of homeowners now, they are buying plans online. They go into these houseplans.com or architecturaldesigns.com, and they find what they want, they hand it over to a builder and get it built. They could care less about the details of it. And so trying to bring that into the Oklahoma market, Kansas market, Nebraska, this whole how trying to bring it into that is an uphill battle. And I think that's what most people struggled about. But where we've seen the biggest rise for this industry is the homes in California that are burning, hurricane zones throughout Florida, the earthquake zones in Northern California. That's where you really start to see a better home survive, because now even builders are like, well, I can't build that again. That was a $3 million home that just collapsed. These homeowners, I would never be able to build that for that homeowner. And so now we dive into, well, how can we not? In Oklahoma, it's great business when homes get swept off the plane and you can just go in there and rebuild a whole new community. That's profitable. Why would you ever walk away from that? Yeah. Not to get into medical, but it's profitable to keep people sick. It's the same thing with homes. Why would you ever change that? And I think that's one of the biggest problems with the construction industry is that's what my granddad did, so I'm going to do the same thing.
And you do run into those instances in Florida and California where insurance companies are just pulling out of certain areas, right? They're walking away saying, nope, we're done, no mas, right? They're not going to insure anything again. And you almost wonder, at some point, when are we going to understand, like, hey, this coastal community just got slammed, right? They're just wiped off. There's no one there left. Are we going to see someone be like, hey, you can build something, but no one's going to insure it. And so you might want to build it better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's interesting what you were speaking about before, Jerad, about the kind of California, the earthquakes, things like that. It seems to me you're kind of like the OG storm chaser all of a sudden, or your product is becoming the OG storm chaser. it's like, well, there's a natural disaster. There's a cavern that opened up. There's a sinkhole. And you mentioned Florida specifically is like your major market. And obviously they deal with hurricanes. But, I mean, is that also because of just the building community there and the code requirements? What has been such the ramp up in Florida versus other states?
Code requirement, you hit the nail on the head. So it is getting more strict down there. The FBC is, the Miami-Dade, being able to keep up those testings. And it's becoming cheaper. I mean, this sounds crazy even me to say it. But it's becoming cheaper than CMU construction. CMU is heavy. You're paying a lot of money for labor because you got a whole crew coming out versus send 5 guys and a couple of styrofoam blocks. Let's stack this up and knock it out in a week. And so even Florida is starting to see like this is a better market for us because now we're still building to these wind loads, and you can absolutely build a stick frame home at those high wind. But it's going to take a ton of braces on the bottom plate, top plate, strapping the roof down. I lived in the Key West area, and the first house, I was so surprised by this, the first house that was on my docket to design was a 2x6 stick frame home in the Keys. It made no sense to me. It was all pressure treated wood. I didn't get one of the concrete homes, which is what I'm coming from, an ICF industry, and they gave me a wood frame home. To me, it was quite the project because I still had to meet those code requirements, which it was extremely difficult with uplifts in certain corners of the house and stuff like that. And it, to the point, it affected my design because if I could design with ICF, it would have been more free. I can do what I want because now I have concrete walls. But being a stick frame home, I have to watch for those interior corners that collect a lot of uplift. So that entire industry in Florida is moving in a positive direction that is more concrete. Even tilt-up constructions becoming bigger down there for homes. Now that's an extremely expensive way to build, and you don't get the insulation factor you do with ICF. ICF makes a lot more sense, but yeah.
You talked about like ICF versus masonry construction,
Yeah.
The other part of that is the construction or the skill needed by the individuals putting this product in place is different, right?
Oh, absolutely. Florida is blessed with ICF installers. So number one, it's easy to find down there. So you're not bidding 2 guys and you get a high price because they're both having to drive in from another state. You're getting guys right there in your city that can install because it has become an aggressive way of construction. So with CMU construction, that is extremely common. And so you will be able to find crews everywhere. But as ICF grows and more people dive into it, especially contractors, you're going to find that it's probably going to end up cheap because labor is so different than hauling around those heavy concrete blocks.
So, Jerad, this is kind of interesting. We see this evolve in industries over time. So what are the next new cool applications that you're seeing this being used in the future? Obviously, it's not even being used just for homes now. We're seeing all sorts of wild things. And then where do you see this going in the next 10 years with the evolution in construction?
So, I mean, we've spent this whole podcast talking about ICF, and that is dear to my heart. There's a lot of phenomenal alternatives out there that people have just never dove into. A recent one that I fell in love with that it complements ICF or it has its own system is a product called Gigacrete. It comes in like a Seco product. It's completely organic. There's not a single toxin in their warehouse where you can actually eat the product out of the bag because there's nothing in there that can harm you. And they even say that in their intro videos. It's phenomenal stuff. And it's fireproof, waterproof, mold-proof. They've been building with it throughout the Caribbean and stuff like that. And it's a phenomenal product. And they will actually, the owner of it, I watched a video on YouTube about him. He was from England. He ended up moving to Canada, and now he's in Las Vegas. But he would rebuild these restaurant renovations in a factory. And then they would shut down the restaurant over like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, come in, completely redo the entire restaurant in 3 days. And then they'd be up and running again that next Thursday. And so he ended up long process. Ended up inventing this organic material that you can put on your house. And you can apply it straight to ICF, which is the reason I found it. And so now we're talking about wildfires in California. This house doesn't catch fire. There's nothing in that can catch fire. It actually crystallizes to the home, and it is a protective barrier. And same thing for flooding, high winds, everything. So like in this industry, I mean, I spent a lot of time with ICF. That's what got me into it. But there's so many alternative products. I actually have a second business where we do paving, and it's actually all recycled plastic paving called Permeable. And so I own the Oklahoma market, North Texas, and it does not wash out. It's got a 30-plus year lifespan. There's no cracking because it keeps crack. There's no recoating like asphalt, and it has 3 times the compression strength of asphalt. So when I back up, I started in the ICF industry, but I am honestly somebody that just wants sustainable design. And so these sustainable products, that's what I listen to on a daily basis. Those are the podcasts I want to hear, YouTube videos I want to watch. I don't want to see how people are redoing ICF 1,200 ways. I want to see what can complement an entire house throughout and be a sustainable home.
Well, you had me as a business owner is it called Gigacrete?
Gigacrete, yeah.
Yeah, you had me as a business owner when you said Gigacrete was edible, because then I immediately heard labor rates go down because, hey, we don't need lunch breaks, right? Like, but no, you are right. There's this idea that, hey, we've got a great product, just like a computer, right? You've got a great, CPU processor, but it's only as good as the integrations of all the systems. Right. So those new products, I think they're really cool. I have seen footage online or YouTube videos of the recycled, asphalt and hard surfaces and stuff. I think that's so cool. So,
it is.
Besides those, I mean, what are some of the newer cool things that you're getting into, that you're introducing to customers and things like that?
So a big topic lately, more than it has been in the past, and like I said, I've been doing this for about 14 years, I'm hearing more about water harvesting with homes. That really wasn't a big item 10 years ago. But now people are starting to realize, especially in California, with their drought issues and their water limitation, they're going to take what little rainfall they get and actually protect it. And so that's a big item. We're really starting to see solar is becoming a bigger deal. And I haven't dove in. I know that they got the shingles and stuff like that from Tesla. I haven't dove into all that stuff, as wonderful as it sounds, but trying to hit every aspect of, I want a complete net zero goal. Those are the kind of products that we dive into. But yeah, there's tons and tons of products out there. The ones that I've personally touched and felt and gone to classes for, that's kind of like the ICF, the Gigacrete, the True Grids, that's the paver system, stuff like that.
And Jerad, you brought up the idea of a net zero home. And I think what's important for people out there to understand is you can have a net zero home and it doesn't have to cost significantly more. You are going to have to think a lot more about how all these systems are going to interconnect, but it doesn't have to be more costly. It just has to be different, and you have to be open to that.
Yeah, I mean, passive solar is a great way to do that, using sun angles to heat and cool your house. It does make a huge impact, so you're absolutely right. It makes an impact on the design when you get into trying to meet those requirements. So, yeah, that's a very good point.
Well, Jerad, this has been an awesome conversation. I love learning about this stuff. Before we get into our final question, I got to ask, because you're very well educated on all this new technology that's being used. And I'm curious as an individual, not just for our 4 listeners. I mean, where are you learning this stuff? I mean, are there certain trade shows that you specifically hit up every single year to learn about this technology? I mean, where are you finding these resources?
It is an absolute blessing for me, because the biggest part of where I get this is HOMA. You got to realize, when they find the ICF industry, they've done tons and tons of research of all this stuff. They have this manufacturer close to them that uses this cool product. And so I started working with these, like the Gigacrete, for instance. I heard of them a long time. And I started diving into, well, what is Gig? And these homeowners are so educated that when they come to me like, hey, I heard of this product, I'm curious about using it. Well, let me dive into it. And I come back, I'm like, this shit's cool, man. Yeah, let's use it, And
It's like, and I'm going to charge you for the extra 30-minute call. No, I'm sure you don't do that. But no, I mean, that's good, though. So, it's funny. In the construction world, some contractors talk about like, the homeowner got on the internet and found out all this information about stuff that's faulty. But you flipped the script and you're saying, hey, listen, like the fact that the homeowners have information, all they access the information, actually creates a better product. It's just the perception of it, right? That's so cool.
I mean, some of it sucks, and you got to deal with that. But for the most part, they have done so much research that personally, I can't sit on YouTube with kids and a wife and just watch all day long, learn about, new products and stuff from Matt Reisinger. I can't do that. So when I get new clients, when we're dealing 200 homes a year, I talk to people across the nation. It's like, hey, I found ICF, I found this, found that. Okay, well, you want to use that in your house? Yeah. Let's dive into that. Tell me about it. And then now I'm kind of forced to kind of learn, well, how am I going to implement this into their home? Then it turns into this should be used way more often than just locally in Idaho or wherever they are, And that's been a big turning point for me. I mean, I love to do research. I love to dive into new product, but I got to give the credit. I don't get stuck in my ways. And I've said this a long time ago. I'm not using AutoCAD anymore. I use Revit. But as programs progress through time, if I stay with Revit for the next 20 years, I'll know it really well, but I'm missing out on what I could be drawing. I'm missing out on new types of sun analysis and quicker ways to draw, which benefits me because if I can turn a plan over quicker, that's more money on our side. That's better profit. And so if I was to just stay in Revit and focus on that throughout my career, I'd be losing out with how the world is changing. And that's the same thing with construction. That's the same thing, even in the food industry, anything. You got to adapt to the times.
Yeah. Well, Jerad, we have had an absolute blast here. And obviously you've heard a few of our episodes, so we're going to throw a curveball at you. But at the end of each episode, we always like to, and I take the first stab at myself, that I am the patron saint of screwing things up. And I like to say, if you're going to screw it up so bad you can brag about it. So what's a screw up in your career that you've had that hopefully somebody out there listening could benefit from your screw up?
You can get sentimental about this, but stay true to what you believe in. When I first started and I had 4 projects and I wanted to go to 6 projects to really grow my life, you start falling into all these like advertisements from websites and stuff, and you get these cold calls and stuff like, we can grow your business. And when I dove into that stuff early, like I could get more leads from this, but it's not what I truly believe in. It hurts you. And it did hurt me years ago until I realized, I might have less clients and I will just stay a small business. I'll stay comfortable within myself. I'll stay under my means and I will do what I truly believe in. And what that has turned into, put all my focus into what I believe. I'm not wasting any time. I'm actually in what I want to do. And so making those mistakes 12 years ago, that's what hurt me as a business owner, is I chased the lead and led instead of the lead chasing.
Well, I'm excited that you got into it. I'm excited that you ran into some wild professor in his first year in your last semester that steered you into that direction. Obviously, steering into the niche is leading you to 150, 200 homes a year. So it's like, hey, so Terry, you're not that bad of a teacher after all. I know I was giving you some shit before we started today, but all right. Go ahead and give yourself a pat on the back.
Hey, no, I'll take any compliment as one-sided or lopsided as it may be.
Wait a minute. Is that because you can't pat yourself on the back? Yeah. Well, Terry, I appreciate your invite for the guest today. Jerad, learned so much. Thanks for sharing about your kind of the technology and just all this stuff, because also, you are one of those where as a builder or a contractor, we only can work with what we got, and a lot of that integrates so much with the design world. So I appreciate what you're doing just for our structures and everything. My family is I'm originally from the mountains of North Carolina, so we're finding all sorts of benefits right now with construction methods like this, and it has been around in North Carolina for many years. But before we kind of send off, how do people get a hold of you to learn more about your firm and maybe your expertise on design? If they're a builder out there, how do they reach out to you?
So our website is just wadedesigngroup.com. We're also on Facebook, some other social medias, I think Instagram and stuff like that. I have a team. They do more on that than I do. But yeah, Facebook is the one I know how to work. So that's a good way, in our website. And MySpace.
Hey, by the way,
I'm probably on
MySpace.
there's there we go.
In there, bro. Well, that's okay. I can navigate Facebook, except I did accidentally delete our podcast page, I guess, this week, and then Drake recovered it because I was messing around with one of my other pages. And anyways, so now I'm in Facebook jail, not by Facebook, but by Drake. So, but nevertheless, Jerad, it's been a great time having you. Folks out there, we appreciate you. We appreciate you subscribers out there for reaching out to us. We're excited to come into the final stretch for the end of the year. Our 52nd episode is coming up. Terry, are you ready for this?
Oh, goosebumps all over.
Man alive, it's coming up. It's been a stretch, and I'm having fun doing it. So listen, just remember out there, contractors, you guys kick ass. So thanks for listening to another episode of Beers with Contractors. We'll see you next week.
See ya.
And that's a wrap for today's episode of Beers with Contractors. We hope you enjoyed our chat as much as we did. Before we say our final goodbyes, a friendly reminder. Beers with Contractors encourages responsible drinking. If you choose to enjoy a beverage during our time together, please do so in moderation and only if you're of legal drinking age in your country or state. Furthermore, the advice and insights shared in this podcast are for informational purposes only. Always consult with professionals and experts in your field, and be sure to follow local laws and regulations regarding licensing and permits. We're here to help, entertain, and inspire, but your safety and compliance are important. So, as you head out into the world of construction and contracting, remember to build responsibly and make decisions that stand the test of time. Thanks for joining us today. We'll catch you on the next episode of Beers with Contractors. Until then, cheers to your success.